Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Katherine Jackson. I am the VP of Business Services here at Far South CDC, which is located on 115th and Halsted. The exact address is 837 West 115th Street. And give me 1 second. To make sure everybody can hear me again, drop a one in the chat if you can hear me. Just want to make sure everything is good. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for joining today. I am happy to present an amazing webinar today. Thank you for joining Legal Issues for Emerging Business, presented by myself, Jamal Abdulrasheed, and Erica Sprangler-Raz. First, I'm going to get into what the Business Services Department does at Far South. So if you guys see this flyer here are our programs that we provide. So Far South in general does a whole lot of things. But as far as the Business Services Department, we are a neighborhood development center, which focuses on mainly the city of Chicago, helping you get prepared for any city of Chicago grant, which is Chicago Recovery Fund and the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. Also, business licensing, anything that has to involve with the city of Chicago, getting your business, from A to Z. So basically, we are a neighborhood development center which partners with Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, which is the licensing department for the city of Chicago. Also, we are an Illinois Procurement Technical Assistance Center. So anybody that is looking for any type of certifications or even trying to get to contract or even government introduction into government contracting, we are a Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And we actually do one-on-one advising as well if you just want to know any more information about procurement in general. And then also we are a Special Service Area 45. What that means is that we manage the corridor from 97th and Halsted to 127th and Halsted. And what that means is that if you want to come in the special service area, meaning that if you're looking for a location to start your business, we will be able to assist you. So I am going to introduce Jamal Abdulrasheed and Erica Sprangler-Raz, which are from the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Did I say it right, Erica? And Jamal?
Yes, you got it.
I am going to take it over to them, and I'm still going to be admitting people through this. And we are going to go through the presentation and then after ask questions. But if you do have a question, you will be able to put it in the chat during the presentation. Okay, so Jamal and Erica, take it over.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. We are pleased to be partnering with Far South CDC on this webinar. My name is Erica Sprangler-Raz. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Director of Pro Bono Works and Senior Counsel with Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And our organization works to advance race equity and economic opportunity for all. We use all the legal tools to advance our mission. We're mostly known for our impact litigation and policy work, but we also have a core issue area of equitable community development. And in that practice area, we support nonprofits and small businesses that work to strengthen their communities. And so part of the tools that we use to advance our mission includes legal education, community education, in addition to legal support and direct legal services. How we do our work is through our Pro Bono Works program. It's a volunteer program. We have volunteers like Jamal here, who is sharing his expertise today. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Jamal, who is an attorney with Ice Miller, one of the law firms, which is a member law firm of Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And so Jamal, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started on the legal issues for emerging small businesses.
Yeah, Erica, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for jumping on. It's a pleasure to be here to work with Far South Community Development Corp. And then also Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. So it's kind of nice to do things like this. I think a lot of days I can be stuck at the desk just doing and looking at contracts, things like that. So it's nice to just educate and present on certain topics. So I have a presentation, a PowerPoint that I'll pull up. Before I dive in, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about who I am. Again, my name is Jamal Abdulrasheed. I'm an attorney with Ice Miller. My practice primarily involves mergers and acquisitions, helping larger companies buy or sell their own business to other people and entities. So that's what I really do on a day-to-day. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, not from Chicago. I've been in Chicago for almost 2 years now, and I'm a father of a 4-month-old. So I am dead tired right now. If I'm sure the parents can understand, but it's a blessing. So I'm gonna pull up the presentation. Just a second. All right, there you go. Could I get a 1 in the chat, maybe, or a nod if you can see the screen? We good? Okay. All right. So I also wanted to say, please, if you would share in the chat, the type of business that you have or that you're looking to start. I would love for this to be a networking opportunity as well, and an opportunity for us to share resources among us. So, this is about community building as well. So if you could just kind of throw in, what kind of company you have, that would be helpful for the group. Okay. And then the last thing I'll say is feel free to share any questions you might have in the chat. If you really want to jump in, feel free to unmute and jump in. Happy to answer the questions that I know the answers to. If I don't, happy to follow up with you. So I'm going to start off with a legal disclaimer. This isn't legal advice. There's no attorney-client relationship being developed here. We prepare these materials for informational purposes only, and it's not legal advice. This information is not intended to create, and the receipt of it does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. You shouldn't act on this information without seeking a lawyer first. In Illinois, if you're in Illinois, or elsewhere if you're elsewhere. Okay, so our goals today are, we're going to discuss the common legal entity structures. We're going to talk about some pros and cons. I might throw out some examples, and then also some special considerations. Examples are important because I can relate to a lot of them. In addition to being an attorney, I'm also a small business owner myself, along with my brother. So back in Indiana, we started an LLC called Magnolia Green Grooming Company. So we dedicated it to our grandmother, and what we sell is men's beard and skin products and candles occasionally, all under the theme of promoting men's mental health and wellness, particularly in the Black community. And so I'm familiar with these issues, and I'm not just talking at you, which leads me to the next point, which is we're going to discuss some of the common considerations for e-commerce businesses. So I'm literally going to just bring up some of the things we kind of came across, practical things that we learned, some of which may be more legal than others, but just some things to keep in mind if you're wanting to jump into having an online site or online presence in general. Okay, so the first type of legal entity or not that we're going to talk about is a sole proprietorship. So a sole proprietorship is an unincorporated business that just has one owner who pays personal income tax on the profits earned from the business. So basically you are the business. So it's the easiest type of business to establish or dismantle because there isn't any sort of government regulation or filings here. And it's actually pretty popular among solo owners of businesses, consultants, or independent self-contractors. So most of the time we're talking about doing business in your own name because creating a separate business or trade name just isn't necessary or doesn't make sense for you. A couple things to keep in mind are that the debts of the sole proprietorship are also the debts of the owner. So whatever you're doing on the business side, that's your debt. It's not anybody else's responsibility, right? Another thing to keep in mind is that the profits of the sole proprietorship are also the profits of the owner. So whatever comes in the door is yours. So let's talk about a couple of the advantages of a sole proprietorship. First thing is that they're easy to create. You don't have to fill a tremendous amount of paperwork. You don't have to register with the state. You might need a license or permit depending on the type of business that you have. So keep that in mind. You also want to comply with Illinois law. Another thing is that you can conduct all of the finances through your personal accounts, for better or worse, but you don't need a separate bank account. And the third thing I would throw out there is there's low costs and fees. Again, you're not paying for state filing fees and annual fees associated with having some sort of actual legal entity. Let's also talk about some disadvantages. This is important. So one of the key disadvantages here is that there is unlimited liability for the sole proprietor. This means that creditors of the business can reach both the business and personal assets of the owner. The business and personal assets of the owner. Also, if you have employees, you're liable for their actions too. So for example, let's say John starts a smoothie company. He's a sole proprietor. So he's selling smoothies as a local vendor at a farmer's market. One of his smoothies causes somebody to get sick, and this is due to John's negligence. He got some bad ingredients. So if the customer wins and John doesn't have the money to cover the judgment, then the customer can take further measures as far as like placing liens on John's property or garnishing John's income. So you're opening yourself up to liability based off of your own negligence. So that's a huge disadvantage for sole proprietorship. Another thing is you want to consider that it's unattractive to banks and investors. So banks prefer to work with companies that have a track record, right? They want to see a paper trail sometimes. If you're an individual starting out with a small balance sheet, it can seem like a risky endeavor for banks to lend you money. And if you want to, attract investment from other people or larger investors, they may want to work with something that's a little bit more refined. So there's some disadvantages to a sole proprietorship. There's also some advantages. And so that begs the question, okay, so who is a sole proprietorship best for? So I'd say it's best for small businesses that have low risk and low profits. They don't have a lot of customers, maybe just a small dedicated group. Sole proprietorships, they usually start off as like hobbies and they become a form of business. So I think my mother comes to mind. She recently, during the pandemic, she started knitting. Before you knew it, she was knitting like winter hats and socks and made my son, a bunch of stuff. And she started selling it just here and there to a few people. She doesn't need to go to the state with that. She doesn't need all that structure. It's just more so a hobby. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the limited liability company, LLC. So this is probably one of the most popular, but this is the usual choice for a lot of business owners. So let's start with what it is. So a limited liability company is a business structure that protects owners from being personally sued or pursued for repayment of the company's debts and liabilities. So there are hybrids that combine the characteristics of a corporation with those of a partnership or sole proprietorship. So, however, if there's some fraud or you're not meeting the legal and reporting requirements for LLCs, you're not safe. So the creditors may still be able to go after the owners of an LLC. The owners are called members. So at a high level, creating an LLC is pretty simple. You need to choose a name. You want to log on to the Secretary of State's website, see if your name is available. I know my brother and I ran into this issue. We came up with a pretty nice name and it just wasn't available. So we had to adjust a little bit and kind of file like a doing business as name, things like that. So you want to keep that in mind. Next thing you'll want to do is prepare articles of organization. These are very straightforward. It's just they establish the rights, duties, liabilities of each member. You'll put your address on there. Then you'll end up paying a filing fee. I believe it's $150 in Illinois. And then finally, you want to consider an operating agreement. So operating agreements they're not required, but they basically spell out the terms of the LLC if you have multiple members. So for example, with my brother and I, we wanted something a bit more structured because we had a third person come in that was going to be handling some money. We kind of just wanted to have like rules of the road. because we didn't necessarily want brotherhood to get in the way of business. We wanted to have rules that we follow. And so that's what an operating agreement does. So once it's signed, it's a binding set of rules for the members of an LLC to abide by. But if you don't have an LLC, if you don't have an operating agreement, then things are governed by the default rules of the state or the state of Illinois. So let's jump to some advantages. One of the big advantages here, and it's in the name, this is what separates it from a sole proprietorship, is the limited liability. And this is the primary reasons that business owners opt to register their businesses as LLCs. Again, so creditors can't pursue your personal assets, like your house, your savings account, et cetera, to pay business debts. However, right, if there's some fraud or whatever, you may be subject to some liability. This is called piercing the corporate veil. Another thing that's nice about LLCs is the management structure. There's a lot of flexibility here. So your LLC can be member managed. That's what Magnolia Green is. It's member managed by my brother and I, just the two of us. So this means that the owners come together and agree on what's next. But member managed may not be suitable. It might be suitable for the on-the-go entrepreneurs. We both have day jobs. We're doing other things. It's easy for us to make decisions. It may not be the best from a legal standpoint for all business owners. So there's another flexible management structure to keep in mind. This is a manager managed LLC. And this is one where the manager is appointed in the operating agreement to serve as the manager. They don't necessarily have to be an owner. They can be an owner of the business or not. And if they're not, then they're just brought in to kind of administer administration of the business. So if you've got maybe some sort of real estate LLC, real estate type business, you're invested, you have a couple partners invested, but you guys don't have the time or ability to run on the day-to-day, you might appoint a manager of your LLC to handle those things and kind of keep the lines of authority clear. Another huge advantage is credibility. Like I said before, it shows that you're organized. You have a track record, you have paperwork, things of that matter. And that's attractive to banks and lenders. A couple more things, distribution flexibility. You decide, or the LLC members decide how you get paid. The usual method is, okay, if I own 25%, then I get 25% of profit in the door. But it's up to the members to decide how that's broken down. Another thing is pass-through taxation. This means like all of the profits and losses of the LLC pass through to the members of the LLC, and then they'll report that on their personal tax returns. So the LLC itself is not paying, federal income taxes, but some states might impose an annual tax. So there's a couple of disadvantages, not huge things, but things to note. They're inexpensive. LLCs are inexpensive, but you're paying. They're just more expensive than like a sole proprietorship. And there may be, some annual fees that you need to come up with as well. But also you want to keep in mind that not having that limited liability protection could be way more expensive in the long run than just paying the fee to form an LLC and have a structure. Another thing is that transferring ownership can be tricky. So corporations, they have stock that you can just you can more easily transfer. But with an LLC, this could be a little challenging when you have multiple members, because sometimes the members, based on the operating agreement, members may need to agree on when you bring in somebody else or somebody leaves the LLC. So keep that in mind. So before we move on, who are LLCs best for? They're really common. Alphabet, who's like the parent company of Google, is an LLC. PepsiCo, ExxonMobil, Johnson & Johnson, those are LLCs. So LLCs are good for anyone looking for that personal liability protection. You want some credibility, maybe, or you have you want some structure when you have two or more individuals in ownership and operations. But that personal liability protection is very, very key. Okay, let's move on. So now we're going to talk about corporations. So a corporation is like separate and distinct legal entity from its owners. So almost all large businesses are corporations. We're talking Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Toyota, you name it. So a corporation is made when a group of people, a group of shareholders incorporate, and then they share in ownership of the corporation. And though their ownership is represented by stock, and they're pursuing a common goal. So usually the common goal is returning a profit, right? But there are other corporations such as charities or fraternal organizations that are nonprofit or not-for-profit. Again, a basic element here is that limited liability. So this means that the shareholders aren't personally liable for the company's debts. And you don't accept responsibility for things beyond the loss of your potential, of your investment in the company. Filing, pretty boring thing, but I'll mention it. You want to file articles of incorporation in the state. Details can vary from state to state. The company will issue stock to each member, to each shareholder. You'll have to host annual meetings. You'll need to elect a board of directors. There's a lot more formalities here than an LLC or a sole proprietorship. There are also different types of corporations. Won't really get into this, but there are C Corps, there's S Corps, B Corps, you name it. And these are tax classifications. And you'll want to consult with the accountant or attorney based off your situation if you do intend to open a corporation. Let's jump into some advantages. Again, that personal liability thing is important. You're not personally responsible for corporate debts or legal obligations, even if the corporation doesn't have the money or an access to repay whatever creditors are offering. Personal liability. Another thing is business security and perpetuity. So stock ownership is a bit more flexible because, like I said before, it's easier to transfer ownership between people or bring in new owners as well. Another thing is that if someone wants to leave the company, their ownership in the stock can be easily transferred. However, in an LLC, that can be a little bit more difficult. Some LLCs are predicated on if an owner dies, then the LLC has to dissolve or something like that. So keep that in mind. And there's also some tax benefits that we won't really jump into. Let's talk about some disadvantages of corporations. Just based off of my presentation, you could tell it's lengthy. It takes a lot more. There's a lot more formalities. It's rigid. There's a lengthy application process. You have to follow a lot of formalities. You have to maintain a board of directors. You have to follow your bylaws, keep minutes from your meetings, annual reports, just a lot. So if you're looking into a corporation, then you've got a lot of you've got a lot going on. So who should form a corporation? So again, there's a lot of expense and formalities involved in setting up a corporation. So you only want to form one if you have good reason to do so. So if you really just want to limit your personal liability for your business debts, forming an LLC is probably smarter or probably take care of you because it costs less and it's easier to run, and you don't have to pay people like me or people that I work with for legal fees and things like that. So if you want to keep it more simple, if you really just want that personal liability, then that'll work for you. So there's that. We'll move on. So now I briefly wanted to talk about partnerships. I won't spend too much time here, but partnerships are basically the simplest structure for two or more people to own a business together. And there's a few different types. There's limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships. My law firm, for example, our law firm is an LLP, a limited liability partnership. Let's talk about limited partnerships first. So limited partnerships generally only have one general partner with unlimited liability, and then the others have limited liability. So one general partner he's liable for anything that happens, and then the other partners are safe in large part. There's generally a bit more control over the company with limited partnership, and profits are passed straight through, just like a sole proprietorship. Then I'll briefly touch on LLPs, or limited liability partnerships. So this is important for law firms with lots of lawyers handling cases and trials, and there's always that chance of that risk of the case going wrong, maybe lawyer commits some sort of misconduct. So an LLP protects each partner from debts against the partnership, and then they won't be responsible for other actions of the partner. So again, that's an ideal setup for a law firm. And so last thing about partnerships, they can be good for businesses with multiple owners, professional groups, again, like attorneys, dentists, people like that. And then groups that just kind of want to test out their business idea before going as far as creating a more formal business. So keep it in mind. Okay. I'm going to take a break. Do we have any questions? I can't actually see questions from.
Yes, Jamal, I'm gonna put a couple of them to you.
Okay, cool. Let me, I'm taking it off presentation mode so I can see questions.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
So I'm gonna go ahead and read some of them out. Some of them I tried to answer in the chat, but they're fantastic questions. They're really good questions. So one of them was, do sole proprietors need to register with the state, or is it self-assumed? And I answered that one, so I'll just put this out there, that the sole proprietor just assumes that the person is operating the business under their own legal name. And so if you are Joe Smith and you're operating your business as Joe Smith, you don't need to register. But if you are saying Smith Landscaping, then you're operating business under a different name than what your individual name is. And so for that reason, you would file an assumed business name. But the same thing is true regardless of the corporate status. So if you are operating as an LLC, if you are operating your business or conducting business under a different name than what your legal name is for your LLC, the same thing would apply. So I think that was the one that I answered. And then there's a bunch of other ones, Jamal, I'm going to put to you.
Yeah, let's see. I think I see one. Let's see. Jocelyn. Let's see. Is there a dollar amount that your company must make in order to keep your LLC status? No. Perfect example is our business. It took us a while to get going. We threw a lot more money in than we got out. That's definitely not anything that you need to be worried about. When you're profitable, you're profitable. So there's no one checking for how much your company is bringing in order for you to have the legal protections that an LLC provides. See anything else? Can I incorporate sole owner LLC to S Corp? I don't have stocks to give or anyone else on my team. Yeah, and Erica, feel free to hop in here if you have anything else to add, but yeah, you can. So, once you form one entity structure, so like an LLC, for example, as this question asks, you can convert to a corporation. It's not the most difficult thing in the world. Of course, I'm saying that from my perspective, but it is an option. And so you'll just keep track of your paperwork so that when the time comes, you can easily kind of pull those things up and fill in the documents as necessary. The Secretary of State's website is pretty helpful. They try to guide users on the proper filings, and so that's a good place to start. It's pretty helpful. So you can do that. Oh, I see it. Let's see it. Okay, I thought you answered that, Erica. Okay. We have other questions here. Let's see.
I can address one of the questions here because I think there's this question may be best for an accountant, and it was about self-employment taxes. Yeah. And so LLCs, single member LLCs in particular, you would pay self-employment taxes, but corporations don't. And is that true for tax purposes? Less taxes on corporations versus LLCs for sole proprietors. So there's taxes for a lot of things, right? There's profit taxes that we're mostly talking about, or pass-through taxation, and what Jamal was talking about for S corps and LLCs. And this is one where it's really going to depend on the personal situation that you have. And so we wouldn't be able to answer the particular self-employment tax situation on every situation. We would recommend that you contact your accountant about that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely piggyback off that. I mean, there's a lot of random, tax issues that you may not have in mind or may not account for. So it's nice to kind of get the lay of the land up front, even if you may not need an accountant immediately. You might want to spend some time looking at that, but ultimately you do want to consult an accountant. I think Jocelyn, she said that if a person can have a bank account under a sole proprietor or only under LLC. You can still have a bank account under a sole proprietorship. Oh, you're welcome, Latoya. Is a registered agent necessary for LLC? Yes, you do need a registered agent, and you will need to put that down on your form when you file. Who can be a registered agent? That's your choice. I actually chose to be our registered agent for our business, so you'll want to make sure it's somebody who's checking their mail regularly. Simple things: checking your mail regularly, and has a stable home or business address as well. There's somebody that you can count on if it's not going to be yourself to kind of keep up with things, because there will be things coming in the mail on occasion that will be important to your business, although a lot of things are also email. So someone that can check their email as well.
Jamal, Erica, I just want to stop for a second. It's a couple of people still joining. If you guys are just joining, you're answering a couple of questions about LLCs or what and S corps. So the presentation is not over. I just want to say that. So yes, we're just going through questions right now.
Yeah. Let's see. Eric, do you see any other questions I missed before I hop into e-commerce, some e-commerce business tips?
I have one more, and I think it's, unless I miss it, it's about an LLC registered in another state. So incorporating in, say, Delaware, for example. Is there an advantage or disadvantage to having it incorporate in Delaware and operate in Illinois? I'm presuming Illinois because we're in far south CDC. So, and I can answer that quickly in that, for the most part, we typically recommend incorporating in Illinois because when you incorporate in another state and then you're conducting business in Illinois, you still have to comply with operating the business in Illinois. So there's going to be additional compliance requirements, and that is going to incur additional fees. So most of the time for large corporations, you will see there's like a preference to incorporate in Delaware. But for small businesses, when we're talking about, those that are not going to be major holding companies, and maybe some of Jamal's other paying clients, there is not a good advantage to, starting your business in Delaware and then still operating here. You still have to comply with all these laws, and then your business will incur additional operating costs, administrative costs, and things like that, and additional filings to actually conduct your business here. So that's for most of the small businesses that we work with, we think it's usually better in their best interest to just incorporate in Illinois. We have pretty good statute that's pretty similar, both the LLC statute and the Business Corporations Act, the BCA, pretty similar to most states across the nation. So I don't know, Jamal, do you have anything else to add? That was the last question that I saw.
I think someone asked, is it easy to switch states? I can answer that real quick. So
yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't say necessarily easy, but it can be done. There are a few different ways. It's called a conversion. So there are a few different ways that you can convert an LLC from, and maybe an Indiana LLC to an Illinois LLC. And I believe that involves, following like a plan of conversion, and then having it approved by the members of your LLC. And then you'll want to also file, I believe, a certificate of conversion, and just more paperwork. So nothing I don't think it's overbearing, if you have your paperwork together. But there are a couple of things you'll need to file. And again, the Secretary of State website will kind of throw those forms at you and have you fill them in and file. You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again so we can talk about some e-commerce business tips. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about protecting our brands. We're going to talk about collecting, paying taxes, and we're going to talk about establishing web policies. These are just a couple things that came to mind for me that my brother and I learned from when starting our business. And for the people that recently joined, I'm an attorney, but also my brother and I own a small business. We own a men's grooming business called Magnolia Green Grooming Company. We sell men's beard and skin products. And so I'm kind of speaking from experience personally with these things. So protecting your brand, collecting paying taxes, establishing some policies. Let's move on. Let's start with protecting your brand. I guess I'll back up and say, I think the pandemic was a time when a lot of people decided to step out there and create an online business. We're all sitting in our homes, we're thinking about other things that we're talented at, what we can sell, what we can make. And a lot of people came up with some really interesting businesses. And, our business was created during the pandemic. And so there was an opportunity for people to hop in online, whether that's through Shopify, Etsy, Amazon. There's a lot of different ways to jump in with your business if you're selling a product or even if you're selling a service. So when we talk about protecting your brand, this is a place where a lot of people can go wrong or they'll forget about this aspect. There were a lot of great ideas out there that emerged, but people didn't take the steps to protect them. And so these are some things that you'll want to keep in mind. This isn't like an exhaustive list, but just some things to keep in mind. So, small business owners, you work hard to create your brand. For example, like my brother and I, we worked a lot on our logo, our name. Those things take time and they meant something to us personally. So for someone to come in and copycat that would hurt. So the first thing that we did after finding a name that we fell in love with, we hired a trademark attorney to protect it. So what is a trademark? So a trademark is a type of intellectual property that it serves as an identifier of your product or service, and that just basically separates you from the rest of the crowd. So this could be a logo, some words, names, symbols, or a combination of all of those. So once you register, you'll register with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. That basically puts the public on notice that you are the owner or the presumptive owner of that trademark. So what are the benefits of a trademark? Notice, like, look, this is mine. We worked really hard on our logo. This is our logo, and it's only for us. Exclusive rights to use that mark. So for our business, we have the exclusive right to use the words and the logo on men's beard care products and candles in the United States. And then finally, the ability to sue. So if someone tries to infringe on your mark, you have the ability and the right to sue them in federal court. Maybe that's not what you're looking for. So if you want to protect your content, maybe you're writing, you'll need a copyright. Copyrights protect works of authorship, such as musical or artistic works, poetry, novels, books, songs, computer software. You want to consider a copyright. Let's say you invented something, you're going to need a patent for that. So the theme here is, there are a few different ways that you want to protect your baby. You want to protect your business. And so, there's a lot of copycats out here, but there are steps that you can take to really lock in your name, your logo, your artwork, things like that. So you want to keep this in mind, particularly in the online space where you're coming across many, there's a lot of eyes that see your stuff. There's a lot of ways that they can steal it. So keep that in mind. Oops. Another thing that we learned from being in the e-commerce space, we're actually on Shopify. So a Shopify is a lot of these websites, they have a lot of built-in tools to make things easier for you. So that brings me to the first point, which is don't forget to collect sales tax. We forgot. This is important because working with an accountant is ideal. And paying your taxes is a normal part of life. But you want to make sure you factor it in here. So this includes taxes that you have to pay on your earnings, and then the sales tax you owe on each sale that you make. This is kind of where we forgot, but luckily Shopify kind of had those built-in tools to remind us, like, hey, we've been collecting sales tax for a year in all these states. Here's the total. Take this to your accountant. One thing that we did learn was that, if you're selling a product across state lines, you may be required to pay sales tax even if you aren't present in that state. As long as there's some sort of, it's called a sufficient economic nexus. So each state has their own rules and thresholds for collecting sales tax for online businesses. But definitely take note. If you're shipping goods to out-of-state customers, you might be on the hook for that. Another thing to keep in mind is that, looks like we have a raised hand. Is that a question? Whitney, feel free to jump in if you have a question on
Oh, okay. Hey y'all, I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
Today I actually got my first order on my website and it has been crazy.
Really?
Yes, just for that one order because I didn't know that PayPal holds your funds for like 3 weeks if it's your first order with them. So that was a hassle. Speaking of Shopify, and you were talking about trademarks, I was just thinking that too because I want to trademark. Thank you, I appreciate it. Shop the hair lady. So I want to trademark my logo because I got a custom logo. Of course, the creator, he gave me like the copyrights and things like that, but I want to trademark it because I love my logo and I get a lot of compliments for it. But when I Googled my business, guess what? Somebody else's name popped up. So I want to trademark. Well, I want to hurry up and trademark my stuff. And I don't know, like, how would I go about that? Because I know I'm pretty sure it's different from like EIN and things like that.
Yeah. It's not. It's way less straightforward. I mean, the best recommendation that I have for you is you'll want to hire an attorney to do. I did, and I am an attorney.
I think I hire an attorney.
But it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing in the world. So for us, my contact information is at the end of this. If you'll shoot me an email, I can pass you along a personal friend of mine who helped us file the trademark. He's a small business owner himself here in Chicago. But it's something. It's worthwhile. If this is your business is something that you're wanting to grow with, it's worth the peace of mind to protect your baby. It just is. And so keep that in mind. You got your first sale, things might get more serious. But if you feel like your name and logo is unique, that's what's really going to be important, is unique to what you're selling. Then you have I believe it's a good move to consider getting a trademark. So keep that in mind.
Okay, and I have one more question because I know Miss Catherine though, but I got pulled in to work on a product placement for a production company for a TV show here in Chicago.
Wow.
Thank you. But I want to keep that ball rolling, and people have been reaching out to me. Like, for example, a rapper in Atlanta has reached out to me. One of Cardi B's beauticians reached out to me. about some of my hair as well. So I was told before I do anything, because of course, you know, in business, sometimes you gotta give out free product. They were saying I should get a contract. So that kind of put a halt on a lot of my stuff because I don't have a contract and I don't even know where to start with that.
So like a contract where you send out free product, or like
They
like
were
an
saying it's
influencer
kind
type?
of like what they call it, a collaboration contract.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think those are good. Just having something in writing, a contract in writing is good, regardless of what it is, because it just kind of sets the expectations. You have something to go back and refer back to if there's some sort of disagreement. And then also, you know, if we're talking about a significant amount of money or a significant opportunity, then you have some legal rights if you choose to sue. So contracts, I always advocate for getting things in writing and getting some agreement between the parties, especially if you're doing things. Sounds like you're doing your thing. So if we're talking Cardi B, then you know you might want to take that additional step. And let's see, it looks like we're running a little low on time. I'm going to take some more questions. I'm going to finish off the presentation. I'm going to talk about establishing terms and conditions on your website real quick, and then we'll take a handful of questions and wrap up. So if you are selling online, got your own domain, website, or Shopify, or whatever website it is, you're going to need some terms and conditions. And I know we've all just ticked those boxes saying we read things and we didn't, just glance at the first sentence. But those are legal terms that are important, and they're for a reason. We learned that too. I was like, I never thought about actually having to put this on the website. So on our site, we have a whole page of terms and conditions that outline the details behind delivery, shipping, refunds, payment, and then what you're excluded from liability on, and then the terms of use of the website itself. This saves you a huge headache. You want to have these things lined up so you can go back and tell your customers, hey, look at the policy. These are the things that our customers are to expect. So basically, this is important because terms and conditions are effectively a contract that the buyer agrees to when they make a purchase on your website. For us, we sell beer products that they spoil after a certain amount of time, or if they're shipped in hot conditions, our beer butter is going to melt. And so this just saves a lot of headaches when it comes to refunds and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. Then also legally, you'll want to specify the choice of law and jurisdiction. So you'll want to say, hey, if any cases arise, they need to be adjudicated in Illinois or Chicago. Last thing I'll mention is making your warranties and return policies clear. This is from personal experience. Whenever you're selling a product, there's always some sort of liability issue in the background. So products liability is its own complicated area of law. And when you have a defective product or defective product claim, that impacts not only the sellers, but also some manufacturers and distributors too, if you have those. And so I stress the importance of establishing just like a clear understanding of who is accountable, particularly if you're relying on like a third party to fill or supply your orders if you're selling product. So you want to spell out your warranties and your return policies in detail. It'll save you a lot of time, energy, and money on the back end if you kind of get that out there early. So that is the end of the presentation. I will take some questions and leave my contact. I'll leave my contact information up while we take questions.
Jamal, we still have like maybe a couple of minutes if you want to extend just a little bit.
Okay, cool. So
Out to like 4:15, I should say. Okay,
fine. That's good. Okay, so here's my contact information. We'll take some questions. I see Deborah's had her hand up for a while. Deborah, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, it's Deborah, by the way.
Deborah, I'm sorry.
No problem. It's always a 50-50 chance. On the sales tax, when you're selling online, are you collecting tax that will be paid for Illinois if you're your Illinois company, or are you collecting tax that would be paid to the state that the client is in?
Yeah, so in our case, and again, I'm not necessarily advocating for Shopify, but it's just, a lot of these different um, companies make it easy if you're selling through their domain. We're collecting from wherever the buyer is. So if it's Indiana, I believe it's like 7%. So I'll see that amount automatically get added to their total, and they'll pay that on their end. And we'll keep the system that we have keeps like a tally of what we're collecting in each state. And so it does collect based off of where the buyer is buying from or says they're buying from. And then as far as when it's tax time, paying that out, that's something that we've just left to the accountants. But my understanding is that you do have to, if it is determined that if we're selling repeatedly in Illinois, then we're going to need to do some filings there. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Let's see, I'm going to check the chat. Shopify is a template which saved me a headache. Yes, that's for sure. Do terms and conditions need to be backed by legal structures, or is it created by the business entity and self-regulated? So there's my understanding is there's just like best practices. So if you went to any website, you can go to 5, 10 different websites. It's all going to really look the same. So there's like a general structure that companies tend to follow. However, there are some specific things that we decided to incorporate for our business. So when it came to our shipping and handling, our refunding, and all that kind of stuff, that was particular to our just so what worked for us. But if we're talking like a privacy policy, let's say you're accepting emails, people's names, emails, their contact information, whatever, that's going to be more boilerplate. That's going to be more structured that you can kind of more uniform in what you put out there for that. Sharon, you're raising your hand.
Yes, I did. Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. My question is, my husband recently passed away and he had an LLC. We operated under that name for educational and health types of agreements. And so I wanted to continue to use it, but his name is the only name on the LLC. How do I get my name on there?
That's an interesting question. And my condolences on the passing of your husband. Erica, do you know what we would do in this situation?
Yeah, usually there isn't I'm assuming it's a single member LLC. And so it may be easier, just depending on what the assets are, to kind of look at, because I think the biggest thing is what's the assets, and then what was the estate planning documents that were in place, and just to kind of like look through that. So it's not an easy thing to do. You'd have to look through that. Or if you just wanted to start up, it may be, and it has a different type of business anyway, it may be better for you to start your own entity rather than transferring something that may have extended liabilities out there that you may not know about, to kind of start a new business with new activities, rather than using this like an older and business that had a different purpose. So again, my condolences.
Oh, I was just going to say,
Thank you.
my condolences, and I know that you guys probably can't say this, but if she has access to his account, she can log in and add herself that way, and then it'll update and they'll send you the stuff in the mail. But I know they can't say that. Really.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I am looking for the easiest method because we work together, and so we're, moving forward. I just wanted to, hang on to the name for sentimental reasons.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do we have other hands raised? I think I see Shelley.
Hi, yes, thank you for this magnificent presentation. I got on a little late, but I had a couple of questions. One is, when you're presenting something that is for the community and for the schools, I've been told two different things. One was to do a for-profit and one was to do a non-for-profit. And so how do you determine which one is best based on the needs? Because I can't figure that part out. I need some guidance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah.
I can jump in on that one. So most of the time, this is going to come through in your business planning process. And so for a nonprofit, most of the time, the beneficiaries of the services that you're providing are unable to pay the full cost that it takes to provide the service. And so you would need to raise funds. And usually those are charitable donations from other individual donors, from private foundations and things like that. So through your business planning process, you're going to see what does it take for me to provide a particular service, and then who is going to be paying for it. So for example, like if the community that you're trying to serve or your target market is unable to pay for it, you may have to have a sliding scale or some kind of lower fee for service. And then if it's truly charitable, then you would want to see if there are funding opportunities outside of that, or if you need to do fundraising events or individual donations. So there's a big tax difference for the nonprofits. It has to be for a charitable purpose. And, you know, there are other structures that are available for when, for example, you've got a for-profit business that is financially sustainable, but is not going to make a lot of profit. And you can use one of the, like an LLC or a benefit corporation, which are one of the for-profit social enterprise structures that says that you have a for-profit business, but it does have a social mission embedded into the operations of the business. So we would always start with, what's your business plan and where are you getting money, and where is the money going, right?
So in doing so, because I've been doing the research on the LLC, the non-for-profit, I know they had two different non-for-profits. They had one that had you capped at like 50K, and then they had one that was higher. And so, of course, you naturally don't know how much money you're going to raise in that first year, but is it advantageous just to apply for the full one, which is the $600 one, just out the gate instead of, I guess, wasting resources and starting with a smaller non-for-profit?
Okay, let me just back up because there's a few things kind of packed in there. So let's unpack those. First of all, the not-for-profit structure is a corporation structure. There are no shareholders and no owners. So we're forming the corporation at the state level. And then the corporation has to apply to the federal government for income tax exemption. And so there are two IRS forms that are used to apply for income tax exemption. One is the EZ form. And in order to be eligible for that EZ form, you have to project no more than $50,000 in each of the first 3 years of the corporation's operations. And then the other one says we're not going to be eligible for the EZ form, which is basically everybody else. So this is, again, based on your business plan. So if you have fully completed your business plan and based on your projections, if you think that the business is not going to bring in more than $50,000 per year for each of the first 3 years, then you could use the regular one. I will say, I'm just going to say, if you go to our website, we help nonprofit startups are more complicated and a little bit longer to get started. And we do recruit volunteer attorneys to do that work for free. So I would say just go to our website, fill out an inquiry for starting a nonprofit. And then we'll have some screening materials, and we have a separate legal education program specifically for nonprofit founders. And our website is clccrul.org. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Oh, thank you, because you said that
question.
so fast.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you. This is what I've been needing so much. I appreciate you.
Arnell has a question. When you name your company under LLC, should you include the letters LLC in the name? Yes. So you'll want to include that. However, so that'll be your formal business name. However, you can file a doing business as name, which will allow you to will drop that LLC name, which can be kind of ugly. So again, personal example, our business is Magnolia Green LLC, doing business as Magnolia Green Grooming Company. So yes, you'll want, when you're filing with the state, you'll need to include those letters, but don't feel like you can drop it. You can drop those letters when you're actually, posting or going about your business as well. Were there any other questions? Did I catch all the raised hands? Also, please throw in your business names, what you do, what you're looking to do, so we can share resources as well. Be happy to check out some businesses, and I'm an Indiana boy, so I'm still trying to figure out things around here and get to know people. So please do drop anything you want to share in the chat.
I'm trying to look through the chat myself. I think Carol, did you have a question? I'm trying to figure out if it's in the chat.
Yeah, I put 2 questions out. And one was already answered, and that was how to find the not-for-profit group, or excuse me, how to find the assistance for small businesses that need some legal assistance. And I see that listing. And then the other question that I had just briefly was just related to licenses. Not so much business licenses for the small business to establish themselves, but licensing when a small business effectively wants to replicate its products or services to just build. And I think what I was asking was almost like franchising. I wanted to ask if you might speak on any aspect of small business licensing. Like, for instance, is it controlled by a contract? Is it controlled by a patent and or a trademark?
So I don't have too much experience here, but the first things that do come to mind are licenses and then like franchise agreements. So if you're looking to allow other people to, is that basically what's going on here? You're wanting to expand the business, let somebody else open another shop or whatever it is under the name of your business, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for? Yeah. So this is there are some like internal agreements between the parties that you'll need to consider here. A franchise agreement is one. You might want to consider. I don't know if the organization has any resources for franchising, but it might be helpful to do some Googles on a franchise agreement and see how those things align with what you're trying to do with your business and with the new people that you're trying to bring on. Keep that in mind. Another thing is licensing. So another thing that you could do is license out like the name and likeness of your business. So a lot of companies will issue licenses. For example, I think I recently saw like the NBA or like the Chicago Bulls had their logo on things in the Coach store. So that's a licensing arrangement that's going on there. You're allowing another company to use your your protected works, whether it's your logos, trademarks, things of that nature, for their business, for those purposes. So I think what you're more so looking for is some sort of like franchising agreement, franchising opportunity. But I would consider that as you look into that. Oh, and then Catherine just threw into the chat. Yeah, definitely. You don't need to do any of this alone. Far South has some business resources. You can just reach out through email, give them a call, and kind of talk through those things. Because there's so many resources out there, and there's just no need. It's nice to learn and to figure things out on your own, but you want to use your resources too, because you could be focusing on growing your business and pushing it forward, as opposed to like getting into the nitty gritty on like, okay, well, what agreement do I need now? So use your resources. I highly recommend that.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Are there any more questions? Nope. Going once, going twice. I just want to say, Erica and Jamal, thank you so much. This was amazing. Everyone, I will be sending this presentation out, the link to actually view it, along with the flyer that I have presented in the beginning, which shows all the business services at Far South CDC. The only thing that we don't really focus on is nonprofit. I usually send it over to Erica. You know, I send it over to you all the time. But I would like to say thank you so much. And I learned so much today. Thank you, Jamal and Erica. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You said anyone have a quick question? I do.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I went on the website and to go to the form for the inquiry, and it said you all aren't accepting people right now. Can somebody give me some information to contact someone in the chat, because the website says you're not taking anybody?
Oh, for our inquiry form, we are currently going through a major case management system upgrade. And so we're not taking specific consultations for that work right now. And then we're going through a listening session with our community partners like Far South that we're going to be setting up appointments for that. But if you submit it through the inquiry form, you will get a response to links to additional information and to other referrals. So if you don't get a response, just email me directly and I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Let me screenshot that now before I go to that inquiry form. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can send it out to Erica and Jamal if you need me to as well through the
Mm-hmm.
email.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. It was very interesting.
Thank
you.
Yes.
I'm looking through some of these businesses. This food looks good, Candy.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to stop recording right now.